You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters, let's talk about the CBA. Caitlin Clark, the biggest star in women's sports. Caitlin Clark has now entered the chat. Caitlin Clark hasn't said a whole lot during this CBA process. She made her feelings very clear the last time USA Basketball got together, and the word of the day when they interviewed her then was compromise.
I don't understand why we don't just get in a room and iron it out, shake hands. Caitlin Clark said it directly, without a filter, cutting through weeks of stalled negotiations. The biggest star in women's sports, who usually stays above the fray, just delivered a direct challenge to both the WNBA and the Players Union, effectively calling out the entire process. This wasn't some subtle hint, it was a clear demand for immediate action, a blunt statement that the ongoing back and forth was simply not getting the job done. Her words pierced the corporate silence, exposing a fundamental flaw in how the league's future was being decided. The implications of such a powerful voice stepping forward cannot be overstated, especially when the very season hangs in the balance. Her intervention could ignite a firestorm, forcing an immediate face-to-face confrontation that everyone else seemed to be avoiding.
Breanna Stewart looked like she was in a hostage video. I mean, I was like, are you filming this from the bowels of some place in the Middle East? I mean, seriously, somebody's got the camera on you, and you're having to be like, yeah, we'll strike. If we got to strike, my God, we'll strike. And it's like, yeah, but you've been preaching and the letters and the numbers. What are you doing? Well, guess what? She's speaking again. I guess she escaped the hostage situation because, once again, she's back to, we need to get this shit done.
This explosive demand from Clark isn't entirely new territory for her. The last time USA Basketball convened, her message was equally direct. We need to still play basketball in 2026, full stop. The word of the day back then was compromise, hinting at her pragmatic approach even before the current CBA negotiations reached this critical point. She has consistently demonstrated a clear understanding that while principles are important, the ultimate goal must be to ensure the sport continues to thrive and grow. This consistent message reveals a player who prioritizes the game itself, understanding that without a season, all other demands become moot. Her early foresight into the potential pitfalls of prolonged disputes showcases a maturity beyond her years and a strategic mind focused on the bigger picture for women's basketball.
Quick! And finally, somebody brings up something that nobody talks about. You can't all get in a room and get this done. Drop dead date 2 days from now. Now, look, let's be honest. At the same time, they can move that date another week, but they don't need to. They don't need to. The WNBA GMs, there was an article from ESPN. They've already come out and said, look, we're just not going to sleep for a month. I don't feel bad for you because, well, welcome to being a general manager in every other sport, especially the National Football League.
Adding to the drama, WNBPA Vice President Breanna Stewart, who previously appeared to be under immense pressure, seemed to echo Clark's sentiments. Just yesterday, many observed Stewart looking like she was in a hostage video, delivering rehearsed lines about striking. But now, she's back, seemingly escaped, and fully aligned with Clark's call for a direct in-person resolution. Stewart stated, "I think it would be great for all of us to sit in a room until we get it done. If that means sitting in there for hours and hours at a time, let's do it." This sudden shift in tone from a key union leader is incredibly significant, indicating that Clark's assertive stance is resonating even within the union's leadership, perhaps creating an unexpected unity in the demand for a swift resolution to the deadlock.
The following. Look, if you're just sending another 1% drop, then you're bullshitting and you're stalling. He's not wrong. He's not right. Until you start knocking 4 or 5% off your demands, where there could be a little wiggle room for the WNBA owners to be like, okay, F it, we'll give you another percent. We'll go from 15 to 16. Okay, let's get this deal done. Until they start dropping the revenue amount significantly, I'm not going to give you credit if your new proposal is, Oh, we're asking for 25%.
The backdrop to Clark's impassioned plea is a negotiation process described as moving by inches instead of yards. Front Office Sports reported on Friday evening that the players' union submitted their latest counterproposal to the league. However, the details of this proposal are critical. Critics like Ben Daniel argue that merely dropping demands by 1% is bullshitting and stalling. True progress, he contends, requires significant concessions, knocking 4 or 5% off your demands to create genuine wiggle room for the WNBA owners. Without such notable economic shifts, these counterproposals are seen as little more than posturing, designed to maintain a facade of negotiation before a potential strike, rather than genuinely seeking common ground.
WNBA and the Players Union over a new CBA has reached the 11th hour. The league imposed a March 10th target date during a bargaining session February 23rd. If the deadline passes without a deal, the league says its 30th season, slated to tip off May 8th, is at a risk of being delayed. Both sides have traded proposals back and forth, neither making notable economic concessions in recent days. The players submitted their latest counter to the league Friday night. A source familiar tells Front Office Sports, progress is being made by inches instead of...
The stakes couldn't be higher. The league has imposed a stark March 10th target date for a new CBA deal. This deadline, established during a bargaining session on February 23rd, looms large over the entire season. If a deal isn't struck, the WNBA's milestone 30th season, slated to tip off on May 8th, is now officially at risk of being delayed. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. A delayed or canceled season would be a catastrophic blow to a league that is finally gaining unprecedented momentum and viewership. The clock is ticking relentlessly, and every day without a resolution pushes the league closer to an outcome that nobody truly wants, jeopardizing the immense growth and visibility that stars like Clark have brought to the game.
I don't understand why we don't just get in a room and iron it out and shake hands. I repeat, I don't understand why we don't get in a room, iron it out, and shake hands. Fever guard Caitlin Clark said, "This is how business is. You look at each other in the eye, you shake hands, you respect both sides. For me, that's what I would love to see." Why on earth have these players not put Caitlin Clark as the Players Union president?
The WNBA general managers are already feeling the heat, with an ESPN article reporting their readiness to pull all-nighters for a month to get a deal done. While some might feel sympathy for their predicament, it's also a stark reminder of the intense pressures inherent in professional sports management. The speaker's take is blunt. Welcome to being a general manager in every other sport, especially the National Football League. NFL GMs, for instance, often don't sleep until June during their peak season, highlighting that intense, relentless work is part of the job description. This perspective emphasizes that while the situation is urgent, the operational demands are not unique to the WNBA, suggesting a need for resilience and decisive action from all parties involved.
And the owners, look, you jokers getting locked out. You keep sending these BS proposals. Yeah, let me drop it 0.5%. But the league is not changing their revenue numbers. What does that tell you? The league has told you revenue sharing is off the table. They've been saying that for a year. I mean, at this point, the players are negotiating against themselves. The league has been crystal ass clear. Spring water clear.
Adding another layer to the ongoing saga, Madeline Kinney of the New York Post confirmed that the WNBA had in fact sent a counterproposal to the WNBA. This news surfaced Friday evening, indicating that both sides are at least still exchanging documents, even if the progress is frustratingly slow. The exchange of proposals is a basic step in negotiations, but the content of these proposals is where the real story lies. Merely sending a document back and forth without substantial movement on key issues can be seen as merely going through the motions, rather than actively pursuing a solution. This constant exchange without meaningful concessions fuels the growing impatience and frustration from players and fans alike.
Caitlin Clark said, "Let's get it done." She is the most powerful voice in women's sports. Let's just keep it real. One could argue she's the most powerful voice in all of basketball, men's and women's. I kind of feel like she is, frankly. I'm not letting nobody's listening to LeBron anymore, for Christ's sakes. Tell me what you think. Hit subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. Check out blackwhitenetwork.com.
The fundamental roadblock remains revenue sharing. For over a year, the league has been crystal clear, spring water clear, about their stance. Revenue sharing is off the table. This has been a non-negotiable point from the owner's side, a position they have not wavered on. Despite this unwavering stance, the players' union reportedly continues to push for it in their proposals. This creates a deeply frustrating dynamic where one side is, in essence, negotiating against themselves, presenting demands that the other side has explicitly and repeatedly declared to be non-starters. The lack of movement on this core issue is arguably the primary reason for the glacial pace of negotiations, preventing any real breakthrough. Clark's directness cuts through this stalemate, advocating for a return to fundamental business principles. "This is how business is," she asserted. "You look at each other in the eye, you shake hands, you respect both sides." Her statement is a powerful call for direct, honest communication and mutual respect, suggesting that the current back and forth via intermediaries and incremental proposals is counterproductive. She envisions a scenario where leaders from both sides sit down face to face to hash out the deal, fostering an environment where genuine understanding and compromise can finally emerge. This approach, she believes, is the only way to genuinely bridge the divide and secure a viable future for the league. The speaker provocatively asks, why on earth have these players not put Caitlin Clark as the players' union president? This question, while rhetorical, highlights the perceived leadership vacuum within the WNBPA regarding effective negotiation tactics. Clark's ability to articulate clear, actionable solutions rather than just activist rhetoric resonates deeply. She speaks with the gravitas of a leader who understands both the economic realities and the importance of preserving the game itself. The implication is that her pragmatic, results-oriented approach stands in stark contrast to the current strategy, suggesting that her influence could be a game-changer if formally leveraged within the union structure. The idea of locking everyone in a room until a deal is done is gaining traction. Both Clark and Stewart championed this first time for everything approach, emphasizing that if it means setting in there for hours and hours at a time, let's do it. This strategy, while drastic, underscores the desperation and urgency felt by the players. It suggests that the current negotiation format is insufficient and that only an intensive, focused, and uninterrupted session can break the impasse. Such a move would be unprecedented for the league, but the players clearly believe that extraordinary measures are now required to secure their season and future livelihoods. The current progress by inches is simply not enough, especially with the March 10th deadline looming and the May 8th season tip-off at risk. Every delay, every minor concession brings the league closer to a scenario where the entire season is jeopardized. The stakes are immense, not just for the players and owners, but for the burgeoning fan base and the overall growth of women's sports. The longer this drags on, the more momentum the league loses, impacting everything from sponsorships to viewership. The urgency is palpable, and the need for a swift, decisive breakthrough becomes more critical with each passing hour. The potential for a player strike is a very real threat, alluded to in previous comments by Stewart. However, the speaker questions the effectiveness of this threat if the union's proposals are not taken seriously. If the league perceives the union's counteroffers as BS proposals with only 0.5% drops, then the credibility of a strike threat diminishes. The league's consistent stance on revenue sharing further weakens the union's position if they continue to push an unmovable demand. This dynamic creates a dangerous standoff where neither side is making the significant moves necessary to avert a crisis, leaving the players in a vulnerable position. The league's firm revenue sharing is off the table position has been communicated consistently for a year, leaving no room for ambiguity. This long-standing stance means the players and their union cannot claim surprise about this particular sticking point. The repeated attempts to negotiate on this issue, despite the clear refusal, only prolong the process and detract from finding common ground on other negotiable terms. It suggests that the players' union may need to reassess its core demands if it genuinely wants to achieve a deal that ensures the season goes ahead. A realistic approach to what is achievable is crucial for any real progress. If the owners and Adam Silver, the commissioner, were to lock out the players for continually sending BS proposals, it would be a drastic but perhaps inevitable escalation. The speaker's argument is that if the league is not changing its revenue numbers, then the players' proposals, if they contain only marginal changes, are not being taken seriously. A lockout would undoubtedly be disastrous for everyone involved, but the speaker implies it could be a consequence of the current unproductive negotiation style. This dire scenario underscores the critical need for both sides to engage in genuine, meaningful concessions to avoid total gridlock and the potential for a lost season. Caitlin Clark's emergence in this discussion isn't just about her individual fame, it's about her unprecedented influence. She is undeniably the most powerful voice in women's sports, and some would argue the most powerful voice in all of basketball, men's and women's. This level of influence grants her words significant weight, far more than any other player or even some league officials. When she speaks, the entire basketball world listens. Her call for direct, pragmatic negotiation is not easily dismissed, and it puts immense pressure on both the WNBA and the Players' Union to respond with concrete action, knowing that her audience extends far beyond the traditional WNBA fan base. The sentiment that players are negotiating against themselves highlights a critical flaw in the current union strategy. If one side maintains a non-negotiable stance on a core issue like revenue sharing, and the other side continues to present proposals centered on it, then actual negotiation is effectively halted. This cycle of presenting unacceptable demands and receiving no movement wastes precious time and exacerbates tensions. For a deal to be reached, there must be a shift in focus towards areas where compromise is actually possible, or a radical reevaluation of the initial demands to align with the clear boundaries set by the league. Clark's vision of business, you look at each other in the eye, you shake hands, you respect both sides, is a stark contrast to the current drawn-out process of exchanging proposals through intermediaries. This direct approach emphasizes personal accountability and the human element of negotiation, which can often be lost in formal, bureaucratic exchanges. It's a call for transparency and genuine dialogue, suggesting that the current method is fostering mistrust rather than collaboration. Her desire for mutual respect from both the players and the league is fundamental to building a sustainable and thriving future for the WNBA, transcending mere financial terms. Ultimately, the WNBPA and the league stand at a precipice. With the March 10th deadline looming and the season's start at risk, the rhetoric and incremental proposals are no longer sufficient. Clark's forceful push for direct, honest, face-to-face negotiation, echoed by Stewart, signals a critical turning point. It's a demand for action over posturing, for resolution over stalemate. The future of women's basketball and the momentum it has recently gained now hinges on whether both sides can heed the call of their most prominent star and finally get this shit done quick, for the betterment of the game and everyone involved. The underlying message is clear. Inaction is no longer an option. Caitlin Clark, the undeniable face of the WNBA's explosive growth, has put her full weight behind a demand for an immediate, decisive resolution. The league and the Players' Union must now answer her call. Can they set aside their hardened positions and truly embrace compromise? Or will they allow the season to unravel, sacrificing the immense progress and potential that has defined this era? The world is watching to see if leadership can match the urgency and vision of its biggest star to secure a future that everyone deeply desires.